You are enveloped in myriad sensations all at once.
Human or half-elves are recommended races for their shield proficiency, to help with your survivability early on. As for half-elf subrace, go with Drow as they gain Fairy Fire at level 3 and Darkness at level 5. Both spells are situationally useful in early levels. You can also run this build on Will as companion. You'll want high dexterity for initiative, and extra AC when wearing robes. Use Hag Hair to round up Charisma to 18, then +2 from Ability Improvement to Soft Cap at 20. You can get another +2 from Mirror of Loss in Act 3 for 22 Charisma. Charisma will be important to both increase Eldritch Blast damage output and accuracy, which could go up as high as 24 Charisma with the help of Birthright Hat. In case Hag Hair isn't available, follow this ability spread instead. You'll then need 2 Ability Improvement and Mirror of Loss to achieve 22 Charisma. Start with the Fiend subclass, as it offers strong damaging spells in early game. We can respec into other subclass later on. Fiend Warlock also get Dark One Blessing, which grants you temporary HP on kills, useful for a bit of sustain early on. Eldritch Blast cantrip will be your primary attack throughout the game, dealing high force damage from the get-go, a damage type that very few enemies has resistance to. As a cantrip, it costs no resource, and only gets stronger with character levels, shooting 2 beams at level 5 and 3 beams at level 10. Using a bonus action, you can hex a target to make your attacks deal additional 1d6 necrotic damage to it. Hex plus Eldritch Blast is your bread and butter combo for the early part of the game. When the target dies, you can reapply Hex to a new creature without expending a spell slot. Hellish Rebuke is a reaction spell that deals 2d10 fire damage to your attacker, useful to squeeze in extra damage per round whenever an enemy hit you. Unlike other spellcasters, Warlock spell slots regain on short rest. They don't need to long rest as often, so don't hesitate to use your spells. Agonizing Blast adds your Charisma modifier as damage to each beams of Eldritch Blast, so now Charisma becomes an important scaling factor to your damage as well, not just for accuracy or spell DC. Repelling Blast allow Eldritch Blast to push enemy away. It can be used to simply create some distance, or instantly kill your target by pushing them off a high ground. It is considered a magical push and has no save, so even large enemies can be easily sent flying. Devil's Sight is another great alternative, offering defensive utility instead, that goes hand in hand with Darkness spell. In the first act, I recommend Repelling Blast, as there are a lot of battles that take places near high ground. On Act 2 onwards, you can consider Devil's Sight, as the opportunity to push enemy into their deaths gets fewer and fewer. Scorching Ray has high single-target damage potential, especially when used with Hex to get multiple ticks of necrotic damage. This spell combo will be your burst damage option against bosses for the moment, when Eldritch Blast is still scaling.
And worse. What were they doing here?
Pact of the Chain can summon an imp to fight alongside you, useful to add a few extra damage and draw enemy attention. It also has unlimited invisibility, which is very useful to initiate fights and surprise enemy, giving you a free round. Simply send it ahead to engage, then follow into battle afterward.
Haste. Nothing important is ever easy. I'm ready.
Cloud of Daggers is your AoE option at early levels. That does damage twice, once on initial cast and second on enemy turn, total of 8d4 damage. With Repelling Blast, you can conveniently send enemy back into the cloud to deal even more extra damage. At level 5, Eldritch Blast now shoot 2 beams, becoming even more lethal. Warlock Imp also gets an extra attack. Fireball replaces Cloud of Dagger as your AoE option whenever there is a group of enemies. Respec your character at level 6, then start 4 levels in Sorcerer and 2 levels in Warlock. Pick Draconic subclass to get Draconic Resilience for the 13 base AC plus Dex modifier bonus when not wearing armor. It's essentially free mage armor, as we will be wearing Potent Robe for the rest of the game. Pick any fire ancestry. The bonus elemental damage won't matter for this build, but the fire resistance can be useful. By starting first level as Sorcerer, you get proficiency in Constitution to hold concentration spells better, instead of dropping them after taking a slightest hit. Shield is a reaction spell that adds +5 AC to greatly boost your survivability against enemy attacks. Sorcerer meta magic is the main selling point of this multi-class. With Quickened Spell, a Warlock can cast Eldritch Blast using bonus action, greatly increasing your damage output. Hex and Eldritch Blast combo will still be good for minor encounters. Otherwise, casting Eldritch Blast using both actions and bonus actions will output higher burst damage at this level. Pick Great Old One subclass this time instead of the Fiend, as the build will eventually spec into crit focus later on, and Great Old One passive synergizes well with critical hits. With Mortal Reminder passive, whenever you land critical hit on a target, that target and nearby enemies become frightened until next round. Not only your enemies will have disadvantage on their attack, they also cannot move towards Source of Fear, which is you, meaning enemies are effectively pinned in place and possibly forced to skip turns if they couldn't make any ranged attacks. Haste gives you a +2 bonus to AC and advantage on dex saves. Your move speed is doubled, but most importantly, getting 1 additional action per turn to shoot more Eldritch blasts. You could also use Twinned Spell Metamagic to haste both yourself and another party member if you want to share the buff. Keep in mind, haste spell require concentration, so don't cast Darkness or Hex by mistake. Otherwise, haste concentration will be cancelled and you get stunned in the process. At level 6 of Sorcerer, you get more 3rd level spell slots and sorcery points. Draconic Sorcerer also gain fire resistance due to fire ancestry. There is a certain late game battle that heavily involves fire damage, so the resistance could be useful there. You can activate Draconic Fire Resistance by simply casting a Firebolt. Darkness spell creates a cloud of magical darkness that blinds creatures inside and prevent ranged attacks from coming in or out of it. However, with Warlock Devil Sight, none of the restrictions apply to you. You are able to safely attack inside darkness, while most enemy attacks can't reach you. In Patch 4, enemies can walk into the darkness to melee attack, but they will do so with disadvantage on their attacks due to blindness. For the same reason, your attacks will have advantage on blinded enemies, so they stand to lose more than to gain. Enemies frightened by Mortal Reminder feature will be forced to skip turns as they can't move, nor making ranged attacks into the darkness. Sorcery Point is needed to use Metamagic, and because the build focus on dealing damage with Eldritch Blast, most of your spell slots can be converted into Sorcery Points to shoot even more blasts in a turn. For first level spell slots, Shield can be casted with Warlock spell slots, so you can keep 2 of them. The rest can be converted into Sorcery Points. If Warlock spell slots were unused after a battle, remember to convert them as well, before you short rest.
Better than nothing.
For second level spell slots, Darkness can be casted with Drow Magic. Misty Step is easily accessible from equipments. So unless you want more casts of Darkness in a day, most of the second spell slots can be converted into Sorcery Points. For 3rd level spell slots, keep them around as they will be used for haste. However, if you have been stocking up Potion of Speed, you could drink them instead for the same effects and convert the slots into Sorcery Points. From level 9 onwards, take all 4 levels of Fighter. Action Surge grants you an extra action to do another cast of Eldritch Blast in a turn. It recharges on short rest, so you could use Action Surge for at least 3 battles each day. Pick Champion subclass to reduce your crit range by 1. This effect can stack with other crit-related feat and equipments, giving you up to 64% crit chance at full build. Take Spell Sniper as your last feat. It reduces crit range on Eldritch Blast by 1. Alternatively, for player character that already have hag hair rounding up charisma, you can also go with 4 Sorcerer, 2 Warlock, 3 Fighter, and 3 Thief to get even more Eldritch Blast per round. This is because Thief subclass get an additional bonus action that can be quickened with meta magic to do another Eldritch Blast. Accounting for Haste and Bloodlust elixir effects, 1 Action Surge, and the 3rd bonus action from Helmet of Grit, you can do up to 7 casts or 21 beams of Eldritch Blast. Illithid Powers are optional, as core concept of the build works great regardless of them. Otherwise, Perilous Stakes is great to make a boss vulnerable to all damage, so you could delete them with Eldritch Blast afterward. Psionic Overload is a potent damage boost to Eldritch Blast that adds 1d4 psychic damage to each beams, which becomes 2d4 damage on critical hits. This buff lasts for 10 turns and recharges on short rest. You need Awakened passive on player character in order to cast Illithid Powers with bonus action. But it isn't a must-have for the build, as Sorlock can already cast Eldritch Blast using actions or bonus actions interchangeably with meta magic. If you decide to go full Brainiac, then Cull the Weak is very powerful, as it confirm kill low HP enemies. This save you the actions or resources that would have been used to finish them off. Equipments highlighted in red are core gear of the build. Spellsparkler Staff provide a good amount of additional lightning damage and the bonus accuracy needed to land your spells, granting a +1 to attack rolls and 1 lightning damage to each beams of Eldritch Blast. At 5 charges, it does another extra 1d8 lightning damage. As Eldritch Blast get increasingly more beams, it synergizes well with Shriek Melody from Phalar Alluve to generate additional thunder damage on every beams, so having a frontliner carrying the sword is ideal to enable the blaster further. If you ever struggle with accuracy, precast the buff from Staff of Arcane Blessing for 2d4 bonus to spell attack rolls. Hunting Shortbow is used as stat stick to get advantage on spell attacks against monstrosity-type enemies, which appears quite a lot in Act 1. Daredevil Gloves give a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls. It can also turn your ranged spell attack into melee spell attack, so you don't have disadvantage when using Eldritch Blast at close range. You have 2 uses of Misty Step from Boots and Amulet that recharges on short rest for exploring or repositioning in combat. You receive a considerable power up in Act 2, as many important on-hit effects equipment that complement Eldritch Blast can be found here. Potent Robe is the most vital one, as it greatly boosts your damage output and survivability. You get to add Charisma modifier as additional damage to each beam of Eldritch Blast, which is similar to Agonizing Blast, and they both stack. Potent Robe damage is also added to each instance of thunder damage generated by Shriek Melody. Beside it, damaging feature, the wearer has +1 to AC and gain temporary hit points equal to their Charisma modifier each round. With Draconic Sorcerer class taken, you will have increased AC when wearing robes as well. Spine Shudder Amulet makes Eldritch Blast apply 2 stacks of reverberation on hit, while Boots of Stormy Clamor apply another 2 stacks whenever you inflict a condition upon enemy. This combo allows you to quickly proc Reverberation full stack effect, dealing additional 1d4 thunder damage each cast and knocking the target prone. When used together with Warlock Mortal Reminder passive, affected enemies will be forced to skip their turns, because prone targets need to consume movement to stand up, but frightened targets cannot move, so they just give up. So you are not only good at striking, but also at handing out crowd controls by just simply Eldritch Blasting. Boots of Arcane Bolstering can be used instead of Stormy Clamor if you want to output even more damage. Arcane Charge condition actually scales with character proficiency bonus instead of just +1 to spell damage. At level 9, that would be +4 damage getting added to each beam of Eldritch Blast. The bonus also gets added to Shriek and Reverberation damage. To utilize Boots of Arcane Bolstering, there are 2 requirements. First, you need to dash to get Arcane Charge buff. You can do so before initiating combat, or cast Expeditious Retreat, so you're able to dash with a bonus action in combat. For the build variant that multi-class into Thief, they can dash as bonus action on their own. Another method is using the Golem Bell. It is currently bugged, and for the moment could trigger dash effect-related conditions without costing any resources. Onto the second requirement, enemies need to be threatened by you or allies before Arcane Charge damage could take effect. Callous Glow Ring adds 2 radiant damage to each beam of Eldritch Blast, while Coruscation Ring inflicts 2 stacks of Radiating Orb on each hits, reducing target attack roll by 1 per stack up to -7. So now even when enemies survived your blasts, they will still struggle to land their attacks afterward. Make sure to cast light on yourself to fulfill the illuminated requirement of the rings and activate their effects. When you first arrived in Act 3, buy a statue for 5,000 gold in the circus. Doing so gives your character a permanent Bless buff after a long rest. This buff has 1d4 bonus to attack rolls which can negate the attack penalty from one of the gloves you will be using in Act 3. Spellmite gloves can be pickpocketed from Lucretius in the same circus. It adds 1d8 damage to every beam of Eldritch Blast, which is 2d8 damage on critical hits, and you will be critting a lot at this point. Spellmite damage is also added to each instance of Shriek damage. Crater Flesh Gloves is currently better than Spellmite due to a bugged interaction, as it straight up adds an additional beam of Eldritch Blast on crit, instead of just 1d6 damage, meaning you can essentially get up to 6 beams per cast when they all crits. Those additional beams have all the relevant bonus modifiers Eldritch Blasts normally have, and trigger additional procs of extra damage sources you normally get from equipments or buffs. Birthright is the all-purpose hat, giving you +2 charisma for more accuracy and damage on Eldritch Blasts. To pack even stronger burst, Helmet of Grit can be used for an additional bonus action, so you could do 1 more cast of Eldritch Blast per turn. However, you have to be at half HP or less to get that bonus action, which can be done by using Transfuse Health Illithid Power to sacrifice half of your HP. While wielding Rhapsody Dagger, you gain a +1 bonus to damage and attack rolls for every foe killed, up to a maximum of +3. The bonus damage is universal. It adds to all type of damage dealt, which included every beam of Eldritch Blast, each instance of Shriek Melody, and Reverberation damage. You can kill summons like Mage Hands, or even items with HP to build up stacks. The buff will last until long rest. Combine critical hit reduction from Knife of Undermountain King, Deadshot Bow, Champion Subclass, Spell Sniper Feat, and Elixir of Viciousness. You will score critical hits on a roll of 15 to 20, which equates to 30% crit chance on normal, or 51% crit chance with advantage. And by using Risky Ring, all of yours Eldritch Blast will have advantage on attack rolls. If you want to push crit chance further, swap in Saravok Helmet and Bloodthirst Dagger for another 2 crit reduction. Your crit range will then be on a roll of 13 to 20, which equates to 40% crit chance on normal, or 64% crit chance with advantage. Potion of Speed provide the same effects of Haste spell whenever you are busy concentrating on other spells. For those who don't plan on using Illithid Power, they can chug a Potion of Flying instead. When using elixirs, only one can be active at a time, so pick whichever you feel like using for the day. Bloodlust Elixir gives you an additional action on kill, so you could sling more spells in a turn. Viciousness Elixir reduces the roll you need to land a critical hit by 1, useful to further increase your crit chance.